A shooting happens outside of an event in Denver, so we'll talk a bit about what happened there. Let me make sure that I don't have monitor going. A shooting happened. There we go. Always forget about doing that there. So, Amy Coney Barrett's hearings start off as we go into the week and see what kind of fireworks they come up with there. Trump is back out on the campaign rally, so we'll talk a bit about what happened with that. And speaking of campaigns, the Biden camp had a very tepid response to their new campaigning, and they have a very, very surprising new supporter out there. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to. It was quite the weekend, I've got to say that. Bunch of stuff happened left and right, including some effigies being burned up in the deep blue Massachusetts, and the hearings starting up, and campaign rallies, and we are definitely within a month of a national election. So we will definitely talk about a lot of that there. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We have got great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Freckles and Brit Show, The R-Rated Conservative, Stephen Ignoramus, and The Breakdown with Birkenhoff. So come on over there and check us all out, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. All right, looking down at the Dow, looks like we had a pretty good day on Friday on as far as stocks went. The Dow went up another 0.5%, which, I mean, it looks like it's bigger based on the chart, but it's a fairly, fairly small sampling that they had up there and a fairly small distance that they went, but still went up another 0.5%, and the futures are looking like they are going to go up even further here. So let's see what the investors have to say about that. Starting with Investors Business Daily. From Scott Latonin, Dow Jones futures rise while tech futures surge amid coronavirus stimulus talks. Apple, Tesla advance while Twilio soars. Which, if Twilio is soaring, and I don't know much about Twilio except for the fact that I constantly get advertisements and other mobile games that I play to go out and try out their programming trainer, which is a game called Twilio Quest. So if that's true, if this is soaring, that means that people are going out there and learning how to code, I'm thinking. Which may be a good thing going forward. We will see. Especially if they're doing it outside the bounds of going to school. But let's see what Investors Business Daily has to say. Dow Jones futures along with S&P 500 futures and especially NASDAQ 100 futures were higher early Monday amid stalled coronavirus stimulus talks. As the current stock market rally continues, tech giants Amazon, Apple, and Tesla jumped ahead of the stock market open. Twilio soared 5%. Dow Jones futures, Apple and Microsoft advanced 3% and 1.6% respectively in today's stock market ahead of the market open. United Health ended Friday in a new buy zone. Stocks on the move early Monday include Amazon and Tesla. Amazon moved up 2% while Tesla jumped about 2% in pre-market trade. Twilio soared more than 5%. Chipotle, FANG stock leader Netflix, and Dow 30 stock Salesforce.com are approaching new buy points. Chipotle, Microsoft, and Tesla are all IBD leaderboard stocks. Dow futures rose 0.3% versus fair value, while S&P 500 futures gained 0.75%. NASDAQ 100 futures advanced 1.8% versus fair value. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. On Sunday, Speaker Pelosi said that stimulus talks have stalled. She said in a letter to House Democrats that the White House's proposal is wholly insufficient on funding for coronavirus track and tracing, which means, once again, folks, keep in mind that she is holding the American people hostage. Because while a lot of us at this point don't need the money because we're going back to work, there are still a lot of people out there that do. And having that stimulus isn't necessarily there to try and hold you up and pay your bills. It's there so you go out and spend money and get the economy back going, get the factories starting to pump again, get the restaurants starting to pump again, and get everything else like that going instead of just paying your bills off of it. But even still, she's holding you hostage and still trying to spend your money. All right, let's keep going here. From CNBC, S&P 500 futures rise slightly as stimulus negotiations continue. from Fred Imbert and Jesse Pound. S&P 500 futures rose slightly Monday morning as investors prepared for a busy week of corporate earnings and monitored stimulus negotiations in Washington. Futures for the S&P 500 gained 0.6% and NASDAQ 100 futures traded higher by 1.6%. Dow Jones Industrial Average added 45 points or 0.2%. Tech stocks led in the pre-market gains. Facebook and Amazon advanced 1.9% and 2% respectively. Netflix gained more than 1% along with Alphabet and Microsoft. Apple jumped more than 3%. Later this week, Apple is expected to unveil its first 5G iPhone. Woo! The gains follow a strong week for the stock market. The Dow jumped 3.3% to post its biggest one-week gain since August, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ Composite gained 3.8 and 4.6% respectively for their best weeks since July. Markets last week appeared to price perceived election clarity, and with it, a growing likelihood of additional fiscal stimulus, at least in the pipeline. This was reflected from small cap outperformance to rising treasury yields. Julian Emanuel, BTIG's chief equity and derivatives strategist, said in a note to clients on Sunday, traders are still holding out hope for some sort of stimulus, even as chances for another round before the election appeared to dim over the weekend. Both House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Republicans pushed back on a $1.8 trillion offer from the White House. Yep, they're going to keep going. They're going to keep going, and everybody's going to try and spend your money. Nobody knows how they want to spend your money, but, well, they want it spent. All right. Let's get into the breaking news from over the weekend, and we will start on the down note, unfortunately, from 9 News, NBC. This is out of, well, it doesn't say. 1 killed, 2 injured in Denver shooting. Go away, autoplay. Nobody likes you. From Jennifer Campbell Hicks. 1 male was killed and 2 others were in critical condition after a shooting early Sunday, according to the Denver Police Department. The shooting happened at 1:20 a.m. in the 100 block of South Monaco Parkway, which is near Monaco and East Bayard Avenue in the Hilltop neighborhood in southeast Denver, police said. The 3 victims, all male, were shot outside and then taken to the hospital. DPD later said that one of the victims, Ayrton Dable, had died. The identity of the homicide victim will be released later by the Denver Medical Examiner's Office. Excuse me. DPD didn't release any information on a suspect or the circumstances of the shooting. Anyone with information on the shooting can contact Metro Denver Crime Stoppers at 720-913-7867 or at metrodenvercrimestoppers.com. Tipsters can remain anonymous and may be eligible for a reward of up to $2,000. Now, this was the initial article, the first one that came out with this, but in the days that have passed, because this happened on Saturday and we are now on Monday, we have got a suspect who is in custody, a name of the victim, and possible motives to go along. So let's keep going here. From the New York Post, a licensed security guard from Jorge Fitzgibbon. The Colorado man, accused of gunning down a right-wing demonstrator in Denver while guarding a local TV news crew, was not licensed to work as a security guard, according to a news report. Matthew Doloff, 30, who was identified as a Pinkerton Detective Agency employee hired by 9 News TV, God damn it, after the Saturday afternoon shooting, does not have the required city license to work security in the Mile High City, KCNC TV reported on Sunday. We searched our records, and there is no record for an active licensed security guard now or ever for an individual named Matthew Doloff, Eric Escudero, a spokesman for Denver Department of Excise and Licenses, told KCNC reporter Andrea Flores. If he was operating as a security guard, he was in violation of the law, Escudero added. According to the city agency, an individual operating as a security guard without a license could face a fine of up to $999 and a year in jail. Yep, I think he's going to be facing just a little bit more than that. Doloff was charged with suspicion of first-degree murder in the shooting death of demonstrator Lee Keltner, a local hat maker who took part in the right-wing Patriot rally in the city on Saturday. Keltner, a military veteran, was seen in photos and on video arguing with several Black Lives Matter protesters who confronted the rally participants shortly after 3:30 p.m. in the courtyard of the Denver Art Museum. Police said Keltner was shot and killed after spraying what appears to be pepper spray at Doloff, who dropped the weapon and got on his knees to surrender when police moved in following the shooting. Doloff's family declined to comment when contacted by the Post on Sunday. The Pinkerton agency did not respond to a request for comment. So, and there's just so much other crazy shit that's been going on with this. It's been shown that this guy's had Antifa ties. It's been shown that this guy doesn't have Antifa ties. This guy got sprayed in the face with bear mace. I know I saw somebody, one of the worst takes on Twitter earlier on was, well, replace bear mace with skateboard and now you understand why Kyle Rittenhouse is a murderer. No. And plus, the other dude had a gun. So, I mean, we've got photos that are showing the bear mace getting sprayed out here. There's just so much going on with this and so much we don't know. And one of the other things that was funny is people pointed out that they had the suspect in custody almost immediately. And then it turned out that they didn't want to release any names on it because people were suspecting that they were scrubbing out social media. There's just so much going on with this. And so we don't know. It does look like this was a targeted, hunted down attack. But the gatekeepers are making sure that we have no idea what went along with this. So, a lot of stuff to keep in mind, a lot of stuff to keep watch on, and definitely something that is going to get buried here as we go along because this is an election year. And the news stops for nobody. Let's keep going here. I've got a couple more stories on this. Denver shooting victim identified as pro-cop vet shot in front of son and family from Peter Atkin. The man shot dead at a Denver protest was a military vet, grandfather, and avowed patriot who was there to express support for police and died as his son looked on in horror, according to his mom. Lee Keltner was identified by his mother, Carol, in a Facebook post to the group Northeast Arkansas Tea Party group. The heartbroken mom said her grandson was with his father when he was killed by a man working as a security guard for a local TV station. My son Lee was at the Patriot rally today in Denver, she wrote at the group. After the rally, a person on the BLM and Antifa side went up to him and said a few nasty words and then shot him in the head. He was murdered because he backed the police. His 24-year-old son was with him. I moved to Arkansas because Colorado got too expensive and liberal, she added. The left has gotten out of hand. According to a profile in the Denver Post, Keltner was a hatter for Crossfire Hatters, having worked for over 25 years. Keltner was taking part in a pro-police Patriot rally near the Denver Art Museum when he was allegedly shot dead by Matthew Doloff, a private security guard hired by KUSA-TV, a local Denver news station, also known as 9 News, which was who we read from initially, by the way. There was a verbal altercation that transpired. A firearm was discharged. Joe Montoya, Denver Police Chief of Investigation, said an individual was shot and later pronounced deceased. There were 2 guns recovered at the scene. Doloff was taken into custody by the Denver police on suspicion of first-degree murder, though he has not been formally charged. Given the details that I have here, which are sketchy at best, I don't think first-degree would fall into this, but there may be other details that we may not see either. Third-degree murder or man 1 possibly. But I don't think he's got first degree here with the information that's been presented to me. Now, if there's other evidence that's presented to the grand jury, we might see something else here. But from what I'm seeing, I don't see murder 1 sitting here. Looks like I've got a Facebook post, which is oddly cut off. Trump supporter with a Trump button on their shirt told racist button they had nothing to say. Fuck Trump. Shortly after he was identified, past posts by Dolev surfaced, showing that he was more overtly left-leaning politically, with posts talking about how a Trump button was a racist button and calling the Trump administration a fascist dictatorship. Of course, he says that, but when the dude that attempted to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer last week said the same thing, he was a right-wing, Trump-supporting goon. The shooting occurred during dual protests: the Patriot Muster pro-police groups and Black Lives Matter anti-fascist soup drive, the latter of which included Denver Communist, Colorado Socialist Revolution, a non-resistance movement, Which Denver, Hose, Help on Every Street, and Front Range Mutual Aid Network. There was a large presence because we had two groups with opposing views, and we know that can get very tense, Montoya said. There's always potential for violence, and we understand that. I don't know, man. This is complicated, and it's further complicated by the fact that it doesn't appear that this dude was supposed to be working security in the first place. Like, he actually got in there, fudged some records, and tried to get in where he could go out and hunt some people down. But there's so much going on with this story. It's so much that we don't even know yet. And I wonder if we're ever going to know. But, once again, we'll keep going. I got another one here on this story. Pinkerton Agency, linked to deadly Denver shooting, has presidential ties, from Jorge Fitzgibbon. The private detective agency that employed accused Denver protest shooter Matthew Dolev is older than the FBI, was the inspiration for the term private eye, and is accredited with once saving Abraham Lincoln's life. While the Pinkerton Agency is no household name, it re-entered the national consciousness on Saturday when one of the agency's guards allegedly shot and killed a right-wing protester in a Denver, Colorado rally. The Pinkerton National Detective Agency was founded in 1850 by Allan Pinkerton, an abolitionist Scottish immigrant who arrived in the U.S. just 8 years earlier, the agency said on the website. Pinkerton's agents gathered intelligence for the Union Army during the Civil War and later helped foil a plot to kill Abraham Lincoln, the New Republic said in a 2018 report. During the late 19th century, the Pinkertons evolved into a for-hire company of labor union busters, earning a reputation for thuggish tactics while putting down the Ludlow, Colorado miners' strike, the Homestead Battle, and the Coeur d'Alene strike in 1898. The magazine said the agency also featured prominently in the Wild West outlaw days, and once reportedly faced off against Jesse James, the New York Times said in a report on the Pinkertons' exploits last year. So, yeah, this is a big one, a big trusted name apparently, but we will see what happens with this. There's a lot more that we have to pay attention to with this, and hopefully it doesn't just disappear out of the news. Let's keep going here, moving on to other stories. Let me drop this one, because I'm not going to put this on the later Today show. From Fox News, Amy Coney Barrett hearing 6 things to watch, from Tyler Olson. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearings for the Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett kick off Monday morning, and the questioning of the former Notre Dame law professor this week will likely steal much of the spotlight away from the ongoing election between President Trump and Joe Biden, which means that Biden can go back to hiding in his basement and say, "Come on, man, you know, the thing." Especially with the debate originally scheduled for Thursday now canceled. The proceedings are expected to last through Thursday. Senators will spend Monday making their opening statements, followed by Barron's opening remarks, before questioning begins Tuesday and will continue into Wednesday. On Thursday, the Senate will bring in outside experts to weigh in on the nomination. Republicans at this point appear to have the votes needed to confirm Barrett, with only 2 members of their 53-person caucus objecting to moving the Barrett nomination before the election. That means they can afford one unexpected defection and still have the vice president to break the tie. It would appear unlikely that Republican senators who have voiced their support for the process would suddenly turn against Republican Supreme Court nominee on the substance, however. And Democrats are largely resigned that they have no procedural tools to stand in the way of a determined Senate GOP. But Barrett will first have to survive multiple days of being grilled by senators in front of a national television audience. which means that Kamala Harris is going to be sitting up there and pushing campaign ads. You once talked to an agency that once shared a sandwich shop with President Trump somewhere, and he bought a coffee from the same coffee shop as the head of this agency. And who'd you talk to over there? Who'd you talk to? I'm asking you. I'm asking you a very direct question. Who'd you talk to at that agency? All right, here are 6 things that Fox News says we should be watching about this. Do Democrats bring up religion? I have Kamala Harris on record over here on the next slide saying yes. Whether Democrats bring up religion and how they do it, if they do, will be a key focus of the hearing. Senate Judiciary Committee Democrats have a history of grilling nominees on their Christian faith, and specifically Barrett. Number 2, Barrett's response on health care. Barrett, before joining the federal bench, had been critical of NFIB, wow, I can read today, versus Sebelius, the Supreme Court ruling that initially upheld the constitutionality of the ACA during the Obama administration. Democrats are certain to ask her tough questions about that and California versus Texas, the constitutional challenge to the ACA set to be argued in early November. Yeah, and that's one of the things that they've been saying is Chuck Schumer's out there. Well, here we are. The GOP is just out there. They're trying to get rid of ACA. Well, they're going to take away your health care. You're going to die in the street. Number 3, does Kamala steal the spotlight? I don't even have to read down into that one. Fact check, yes. And thank you to my wonderful, lovely co-host Elaine for pointing that one out. Number 4, court packing fight. Yeah, we'll be talking a bit about that going down the list too. Number 5, health of GOP members. Something else to watch for. And it looks like they may be doing some virtual hearings off of this because a few of the people on the GOP side of the Senate Judiciary Committee have come down with the coronavirus. Number 6, campaign element. You can't escape it. We are in the middle of election season, so everybody's going to be doing stuff to campaign. Give us the Senate so we can impeach and remove evil Orange Man and all of his nominees and get our good nominees and then pack the court so we'll never get another Republican majority in the court again because it's evil, and they would actually read the Constitution instead of just legislating from the bench the way we want them to. So those are 6 things to watch for as we go into this here. Moving on, I promised that we had video and something to talk about on this, and we definitely do. So I got just 20 seconds of Kamala Harris talking, which is all that anybody ever wants to hear her talk. Kamala Harris says, of course, questions about Amy Coney Barrett's Christian bias are on the table. Let's listen.
Questions about her faith on or off the table?
One's faith should never be the basis of supporting or rejecting a nominee. So absolutely not. But any questions that are about bias, any questions that are about perspective on adhering to jurisprudence and precedent, of course.
Questions about her faith on or off the table?
One's faith should never be the basis of supporting or rejecting a nominee. So absolutely not. But any questions that are about bias, any questions that are about perspective on adhering to jurisprudence and precedent, of course.
So, yeah. Questions about faith are not on the table except for when it comes to bias. So, once again, we are looking at a religious test to be on the Supreme Court, which is unconstitutional. All right. Another one here from Deadline. Breaking Hollywood news since 2006. Not green check verified, but still worth looking at. Amy Coney Barrett confirmation battle already marked by the Handmaid's Tale protesters from Bruce Herring. And there they are. And oh my God, they have masks on too. Look at that. Look at all that. Look how wonderful that is. They're sitting out there with their masks like good little handmaids. So, this is the ultimate in irony. They are protesting against government control of their bodies, which they think is going to come and happen. They're protesting against this while wearing the mask, which is government taking control of their fucking bodies. That's almost as ironic as the fact that I wear a Gadsden flag mask when I do need to wear a mask. Almost, but not quite. I didn't catch that when I first brought this article up. That's awesome. That is amazing. The start of Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearing on Monday has already attracted protests outside the Capitol, including a group of women dressed in the red habits borrowed from the television adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale. Barrett is expected to offer praise for her mentor, the late Justice Antonin Scalia, during the hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. She is also likely to be challenged on her views on health care. A transcript of Barrett's anticipated remarks was released to the media on Sunday. The Handmaid's Tale is based on the novel by Margaret Atwood. The book and its television spin-off depict a dystopian world where women are brutally stripped of their rights and exploited for reproduction. Protesters dressed in the signature nun's habit costume of The Handmaid's Tale have shown up at protests worldwide since 2017. Read a different book. That's all I have to say about that. I will give them credit for the fact that they've read a book other than Harry Potter, but read a different book. Senator Graham, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said on Fox News Sunday that Barrett will be confirmed no later than October 27th. The hearing is scheduled to wrap on October 22nd. I believe she will be confirmed no later than Tuesday, a week before the election, Graham said. That's my hope, and it'll be up to Senator Mitch McConnell as to what to do after the 22nd, but we can easily get her confirmed before the election. The women dressed in red capes and bonnets protesting Barrett's upcoming confirmation hearing are among those concerned about Barrett's views on abortion rights. Barrett's opening statement will emphasize that policy decisions should be left up to political branches of government, Congress, and the presidency, not the courts. So yeah, you knew they were going to show up. You knew it was going to happen. And of course, the irony of wearing the mask while protesting about bodily autonomy. That is amazing. All right, let's keep going here. From Twitter, I've got another tweet here. Dan Rather, can we at least recognize that court packing at all levels of the judiciary has been the Republican playbook for decades? Asking for Merrick Garland. So yeah, they're going to try and gaslight you into believing that now court packing has been going on for decades, and what we're seeing right now is court packing. They're going to try and gaslight you on that and try to make you believe that going through a constitutional duty is court packing, and putting all the judges in across the country is also court packing. Let's see what the Daily Wire has to say about this. Biden, Dems accuse GOP of court packing for filling vacancies, confirming conservative judges from Emily Zanotti. Democratic nominee Joe Biden, left-leaning activists, and sympathetic media figures are now pressing the idea that Republicans filling the vacancies on the federal court and confirming conservative judges. Why do I keep saying justices when it says judges? Constitutes court packing, despite such actions having nothing to do with actually packing the Supreme Court. After dodging questions on whether he supports adding seats to the Supreme Court in order to counteract conservative influence, especially if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed in the next several weeks, Biden accused Republicans of unconstitutional behavior and packing the court themselves. The only court packing that's going on right now is going on with the Republicans, man. You know, the thing, Biden insisted. Court packing, of course, has a very specific definition, as the Daily Wire noted on Sunday. The practice, which originated with President Franklin Delano Roosevelt through the Judicial Procedures Reform Bill of 1937, involves appointing up to 6 additional justices to the Supreme Court for every justice older than 70 years, 6 months, who had served 10 years or more. The U.S. Constitution set up America's High Court, but did not establish how many justices should serve, leaving that up to Congress. The Daily Wire's Joseph Curl noted, the Judiciary Act of 1789 put the number at 6. That number rose to 7 in 1807 and to 9 in 1837. The number rose to 10 in 1863, then dropped back down to 7 in 1866. In 1869, Congress raised the number of justices to 9, where it has stood ever since. But Democrats are now pressing the line that confirming judges to open seats, particularly conservative judges, constitutes court packing, and the memo has gone out not only to completing politicos, but also to left-leaning activists and sympathetic media figures. Yes, because these sympathetic people will go out and do whatever it is that Nancy Pelosi and Tom Perez tell them to do, and they will tell people to believe whatever it is that they believe. And no, I'm going to tell you right now that this is not court packing. Court packing would be if President Trump went down to the Ninth Circuit and appointed and put 7 new judges on there out of nowhere, which I believe the Ninth Circuit is a 5-person judiciary. I think. I will fact check that after the show. I think the Ninth Circuit is a 5-person judiciary. So if he moved that to, I don't know, let's say he had it 6 and made it into an 11-person judiciary, that would be court packing. But filling the vacancy is not court packing. That's just doing his job. But they're going to keep out trying to do this. And of course, that's the best part, is that they also believe that nominating and confirming Judge Amy Coney Barrett is court packing. Never mind the fact that Joe Biden cannot and will not answer whether or not he'll throw 4 new judges or justices on the Supreme Court to bring the number back up to something that's in his favor. And you know why he can't? Obviously. If he says no, he loses the radical progressive left, and if he says yes, he loses the traditionalist union worker Democrat vote. He's in one of the world's worst places right now. And yet he's still leading in polls somehow. All right, let's keep going. From Fox News. Biden is silent, now on court packing stance, but in 1983 he called it a bonehead idea. Wow, pot kettle, I guess. From Bradford Betts. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden and his running mate Senator Kamala Harris of California have been mum on the question of court packing should they win the November election, but in 1983 Biden was much more outspoken on the issue, calling it a bonehead idea. Biden, then a U.S. Senator, this is Fox, I'm going to turn off the desktop audio just in case something bleeds through, then a senator from Delaware, made the comments during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in July 1983 regarding nominations to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. At the time, Republican President Reagan had stoked the controversy for attempting to replace 3 members of the commission. Biden argued that at the time, although it was within the president's right to do so, it risked damaging the credibility of the commission. He compared it to President Franklin D. Roosevelt's unsuccessful attempts in 1937 to expand the Supreme Court by 6 justices, in other words, pack the court. President Roosevelt clearly had the right to send United States Senate and United States Congress a proposal to pack the court, and it was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct, Biden, then 40, told the committee. But it was a bonehead idea. You know, the thing. It was terrible, terrible mistake to make. And it put into question for an entire decade the independence of the most significant body in this country, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And honestly, looking at all of this here, this is exactly what we're seeing right now with Barrett. And people trying to make the accusations against McConnell for hypocrisy, and then against Biden for hypocrisy, and against Hillary for hypocrisy, and Schumer for hypocrisy. I'm going to tell you right now, this whole My Team Wins game that's been going on for the past few years has been going on for a lot longer than that. It just hasn't been as public without social media to fuel it. But yeah, let's follow the rules when it benefits us, but fuck the rules when it doesn't. So I don't blame him for doing that back in the 80s when he was in the minority at the time. I don't blame Biden for doing that at all, because he wanted his team to win. I don't blame him for trying to block the Barrett one right now, or trying to convince his cronies to get it blocked, because his team wants to win. It all comes down to your team wanting to win. A big part of the reason we should really strip some of the powers out of Washington, D.C., but it all does come down to your team wanting to win. End of story. All right. From The Blaze, Amy Coney Barrett's opening statement is out and liberals are already outraged. From Chris Enlow, Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett released on Sunday the opening statement she will read when her confirmation hearing begins this week, and liberal outrage over what Barrett will say immediately ensued. I haven't even read this yet, so I have no idea what this is. Barrett's hearings Monday before the Senate Judiciary Committee will begin in person on Monday. What will Barrett say? In addition to giving the committee biographical information, Barrett will preview her judicial philosophy, and it already has liberals up in arms. Barrett, a conservative-leaning justice, will tell the committee that policy decisions and value judgments should be made by government branches that are held accountable to the American people, which is not the Supreme Court. Oh, yeah. That's not going to go over well. Let's see what this is. Courts have a vital responsibility to enforce the rule of law, which is critical to a free society. But courts are not designed to solve every problem or right every wrong in our public life. This policy decision and values judgment of government must be made by the political branches elected by and accountable to the people. The public should not expect courts to do so, and the courts should not try. That is the approach I have strived to follow as a judge on the Seventh Circuit. In every case, I have carefully considered the arguments presented by the parties, discussed the issues with my colleagues on the court, and done my utmost to reach the result required by the law. Whatever my own preferences might be, I try to remain mindful that while my court decides thousands of cases a year, each case is the most important one to the parties involved. After all, cases are not like statutes, which are often named for their authors. Cases are named for the parties who stand to gain or lose in the real world, often through their liberty or their livelihoods. I like that. I don't know about you guys, but I like that. I like that a lot. That actually makes me really happy to see her going up to this. And honestly, if she follows through on this philosophy, our court is going to be a much, much better place. Cases are not like statutes, which are often named for their authors. Cases are named for the parties who stand to gain or lose in the real world. I love that. That is amazing. I want to pin that as my new pinned tweet. Except my own quote is my pinned tweet currently, but I like that. That is amazing. That's awesome. All right, what's the response? Those opposed to Barrett's nomination immediately began gnashing their teeth. She has under 3 years' experience as a judge. Couldn't find someone with more experience. I wouldn't trust someone to remodel my kitchen with less than 3 years' experience, one person said. I would. Except apparently for more than reasonable gun laws like Illinois that barred felons from owning guns, which she voted to overturn. What an insidious hypocrite Barrett is, another person said. Really? Since Barrett, an extremist, is insisting on making this about her children, Americans have the right to hear whether she thinks one of her daughters should have the legal right to terminate a pregnancy or to marry a woman. Wow, she's really opening her argument with a swipe at gay marriage. She's going to try and overturn gay rights and certainly prevent any other rights like gay adoption be stopped, one person claimed. Or, kick that back to the states who will decide on their own what is best for the people of their states. This argument is such garbage. The ACA is the law of the land, voted on by the House and Senate, and then signed into law by the President. They can't overturn it legislatively, so they're turning to their activist judges to do so. Reporters should explain this to the people, another person said. That's wrong. Because the Supreme Court has to weigh in on the constitutionality of a law, and the ACA is not constitutional. Shorter ACB, better get abortion and gay marriage into law quick, or else I'm taking them away as soon as I can, another person said. Well, then legislate it. if that's what you want to do. Let the legislature make the law. Doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. Each conservative nominee says this and then gets on the court and implements the will of the GOP. An exception here or there, but they ratify the wishes of the GOP, ignoring precedent whether or wherever it suits, another person said. Yeah, tell me more about the case that Judge Kavanaugh voted on to hear in the Supreme Court over Roe versus Wade. Oh, wait. He shut that shit down. And lastly, this is probably the one and only time I want misogyny to do its thing and let this woman fucking fail. One person responded. So, that's Barrett's opening response, and that's how people reacted to it. Let's keep going. From the Daily Wire. How the left is trying to gaslight Americans on court packing, from Frank Camp. During a debate between Montana Senator Steve Daines and Democratic Governor turned Senate candidate Steve Bullock on Saturday, an exchange took place regarding the latest hot-button issue of court packing. In response to the upcoming confirmation hearings for Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Bullock claimed that Daines and Republicans were packing the court. "You're packing the court right now," Bullock exclaimed. A similar statement was recently made by Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden. "The only court packing going on right now is it's the thing, man. It's going on. The Republicans packing the court," Biden claimed. Other progressives have swiftly picked up this trend and have begun to muddy the water with it. Court packing is a specific action or set of actions, as the Daily Wire has reported. What is widely understood to be court packing originated when President Roosevelt attempted to add justices to the Supreme Court. So yes, watch for that coming up on Twitter and your other social media sites at this point. Yeah, they're court packing, man. Just pack the court, man. When in fact, they're going through their constitutional duty. I'm not going to go too deep into this because we talked about this extensively already here. Next one here from WESH2. Out of, also doesn't say, but given the fact that it says 74 as the weather today, I'm guessing somewhere in Florida. Do we have an author given here? We do not. All right. After having to leave the campaign trail because of diagnosis of COVID-19, President Trump will hold a rally Monday evening in Sanford. Trump's campaign Friday said the president will appear at 7 p.m. at Orlando Sanford International Airport. The president's supporters began lining up for the event Sunday night. Trump had been scheduled to attend a rally at the airport October 2nd, but the event was canceled after he contracted COVID-19. Monday's rally will come a little more than 3 weeks before the November 3rd election, with Trump widely viewed as needing to win Florida if he's going to defeat Democrat Joe Biden. Sanford is in Central Florida's Interstate 4 corridor, which is typically a fiercely contested region of the state. Vice President Pence made two Central Florida campaign stops on Saturday, and Biden will campaign in South Florida later this week. So he's back out on the campaign trail and getting ready to go out there and talk to the people once again. All right, let's keep going. Oh, we got autoplay going. I don't know where we're getting autoplay coming from, but we've got it going. Oh, yeah, let's just get rid of this article here. From the Daily Wire, TikTok teens try to sabotage Trump rally, end up donating $16,000 to the GOP. This is interesting. I have no idea what this is. I just saw the headline. I'm like, yeah, we got to figure out what this is, and I want to learn with you guys. This is from Amanda Prestigiacomo. Teens on TikTok tried to cause turnout to plummet for a Republican rally in Staten Island last week after pulling off a similar stunt at the Trump rally in Tulsa in the summer. Juneteenth, man! Juneteenth! Juneteenth! We suddenly know what that is! This time, however, Republican officials were savvy enough to turn the attempted sabotage into tens of thousands in donations to the GOP from the pockets of TikTok users themselves. On September 19th, out-of-staters using fake, frequently lewd names including Grab 'em by Depuse, Ivana Punch You, and Fuck You Trump began signing up online for the Triumph Rally, a free get-out-the-vote event, according to the New York Post. We had about 1,500 RSVPs from Staten Islanders, explained Staten Island GOP Chairman Brendan Lantry, Then all of a sudden we started seeing the numbers tick up to 10,000, 15,000, 75,000. We knew something was not right. Landry's wife Jessica was able to track down a TikTok video with over 500,000 views from a 19-year-old Brooklynite known as Phyllis Ray, who essentially urged followers to sign up for the event and not attend. The video has since been made private. "Do you hate this orange bitch as much as I do?" posted Phyllis Ray, according to the Post. "It turns out that Trump is having a rally in Staten Island. So what I did was I reserved myself 2 seats. I'm pretty sure that I have something to do that day. So do what you want with this information." In an attempt to dissuade the Trump-hating TikTok frauds, the event holders added a non-refundable $5 fee to reserve tickets. But they kept coming from Colorado to California to Chicago and Houston. All over the country, Landry said. They hate the president so much that they're willing to donate to the Republican Party to troll him. The Trump haters donated $15,785 via the reservation fee, the Post said, noting that no seats were provided at the open-air rally, and the event drew 2,500 locals who filmed a get well message for Trump as he recuperated from his bout with COVID-19. Wow, that's kind of smart. In June, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took glee in the reported low turnout at the President Trump rally in Tulsa over a similar TikTok stunt. So they actually donated $16,000 to the GOP. Do they not know what's happening with this? "Oh, we'll take $5. I hate you so much. I'll get that seat and I'll make sure it's empty." Really? I watch ads on mobile games because I'm not going to spend money into that shit. And these kids are just going to throw $5 because they hate the president that much. Well, I guess a fool and his money are soon parted. All right. From The Hill. Trump calls into Rush Limbaugh's show for 2 hours from Brett Samuels. Now, I did not listen to this whole thing, unfortunately, because I didn't realize that it was going on until into the second hour. But from what I heard for the last 45 minutes that I listened to it for, that was a pretty interesting conversation. There was some good information that came from it. It was what you would expect it to be. 2 hours of Rush Limbaugh practically filleting President Trump like he does on his radio show no matter what. But the reality is this was a huge boon for Trump's base, and make sure that they get out to vote instead of just thinking that they have it in the bag. Let's see what Brett Samuels has to say here. President Trump on Friday called into Rush Limbaugh's talk radio show for 2 hours, during which the president levied familiar complaints about the media, and Democrats took yet another position on stimulus talks. The president had no public events on his schedule on Friday as he remains in the White House recovering from COVID-19. The Trump campaign had billed his call with Limbaugh as the largest radio rally in history, but it was little more than a conversation between two men about many of the same topics Trump covered in the 2 interviews with Fox Networks a day earlier. Trump, who is 1 week removed from testing positive for COVID-19, said he was feeling much better, and Limbaugh pointed to his endurance on the call as a sign that the president was on the mend, though Trump was audibly raspy and had to clear his throat a night earlier during a call with Sean Hannity on Fox News. The president repeatedly referred to an antibody cocktail he received from the company Regeneron as a cure for the novel coronavirus. No cure yet exists for the virus, and the Regeneron product is not widely available to the public. Trump lobbed another curveball into the ongoing discussions about the possible economic aid package amid the pandemic, telling Limbaugh he would like to see a dollar figure larger than either party has proposed. "I'm telling you something I don't tell anybody else because maybe it helps and maybe it hurts the negotiations," Trump said. "I would like to see a bigger package." Okay. I'm sorry, that's funny. The president earlier this week said he directed officials to halt negotiations over a stimulus deal only to increase the administration's offer earlier Friday. And the president again argued that Black Lives Matter is a racist and Marxist group. His latest diatribe against the organization amid months of protests against racial injustice and police brutality. "It's a term that sows division between blacks and whites and everyone, and it's very bad. It's the worst. the worst term for blacks, he said. Trump and Limbaugh spent a large portion of the interview complaining about the media, which Limbaugh is a part of. Trump attacked Fox News as a whole, even though he had just been on there interviewing, complaining that the network was less favorable to him than it was 4 years ago, and at one point blaming former Speaker Paul Ryan, who was on the board of Fox's parent company, for the shift. The president lashed out at LeBron James, Fox News anchor Chris Wallace, Democratic vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. For a second consecutive day, he swiped at Attorney General Barr, this time over reports that a final report on the origins of the Russia investigation is not expected until after Election Day. "I'd be surprised, and I'd be very, very disappointed," Trump said of that prospect. "I will probably be disappointed, because this stuff should have come out a year ago anyway." The president a day earlier targeted Barr and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo as he called for the prominent Democrats, including former President Obama and Obama's vice president, now Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, to be indicted. Limbaugh and Trump have long shared a mutual admiration. Yeah, if that's what you want to call it. The president awarded the controversial radio host the Presidential Medal of Freedom earlier this year during his State of the Union address, and Limbaugh was effusive in his praise of Trump Friday, calling his election providential. The radio host did at one point offer some blunt talk for Trump, telling the president he did kind of bail Biden out during last week's presidential debate. By the way, when he started to fade and you kept talking at him. So that was the show, and, like I said, it was what you expected it to be. These two people are not going to surprise you by any stretch of the imagination. They are going to do exactly what their character arcs tell them to do. Limbaugh loves Trump right now because Trump is a Republican, and he will kneel down in front of any Republican. That's not controversial. That's well known at this point. And Donald Trump will go run to anybody who gives him praise. That's also a well-known factoid. You knew what was coming out of this going in. And it wasn't bad, in spite of knowing what it was going in. But it still didn't stop people from getting all kinds of pissed off about it. From the New York Post, Trump warns Iran not to fuck around with us during a radio interview from Stephen Nelson. President Trump on Friday said Iran knows not to fuck around with us during a 2-hour virtual rally with radio host Rush Limbaugh. The remark was censored by producers on some radio stations that air Limbaugh's nationally syndicated show. In the uncensored version, Trump said, Iran knows... I'm sorry, that's not Limbaugh, that's Trump. Iran knows that they've been put on notice. If you fuck around with us, if you do something bad to us, we're going to do things that you've never been done before. The worst things. I have the best military. And we will do what it takes. We'll do the worst things. Trump predicted during the program that Iran would make the nuclear deal with the U.S. if he wins the November 3rd election. If I win, we'll have a great deal with Iran within 1 month, he said. We'll have the best deal, the greatest deal. And I'm not even going to send pallets of cash over there. But I'll get the deal because I know the art of the deal. I hate to say it on an important show like this, but I'll say it. If you don't see the terror the way I used to see the terror, and they know if they do anything to us, against us, they'll pay 1,000-fold. Trump withdrew in the 2018 from former President Barack Obama's Iran nuclear deal and escalated sanctions, saying that there weren't enough restrictions on the theocracy's nuclear program. So, and I mean, that's one of the things that goes along with Iran, and one of the things to keep in mind with that. First and foremost, we had no business being in the Iran nuclear deal because the presidency doesn't make treaties. That's something that not a lot of people noticed when we were talking about this the first time, is that was just some sort of deal. Some backroom shady deal where President Barack Obama shipped pallets of cash and other valuables over to Iran in exchange to Pinky promised me, no, Pinky promise me that you're not going to make a nuclear weapon until after I'm out of office. Okay, you just do that now. You can do whatever you want at the time, but don't do this while I'm in office because this will look terrible for me. And here's some cash and make sure that doesn't happen. Congress makes treaties. They make deals like that. That's the way it is in the Constitution. But, I mean, let former President Obama, let his decisions fly in the face of the Constitution. He did it from the start. So, honestly, yeah, it was probably not the thing to do on a nationally syndicated radio program. And if Trump wants to come out and say, if Iran fucks us, we'll fuck back, he can come on my show. I'll let him say that on my show, and we don't have to look for the censors on this show. I don't have to go running for the beep button if President Trump comes on my show. But all the producers on the national syndicated shows have to go rushing for that censor button. All right. I've got one here that I'm just going to go briefly into because I kind of enjoyed it. This is an opinion piece from the New York Times, a former newspaper. Talk radio is turning millions of Americans into conservatives. From Paul Matzko. At least 15 million Americans every week tune into one of the top 15 talk radio programs. And they're not monolithically conservative, but they are overwhelmingly so. A dozen of the top 15 shows feature conservative or libertarian hosts, with devoted followings like Rush Limbaugh's Ditto Heads or Michael Savage's Savage Nation. And only one leans left. Talk radio may face an aging audience, a decline in ad revenue, and competition from new mass media forms like podcasts, but there are still millions of Americans whose politics are shaped by what they listen to on talk radio all day, every day. Fox News gets more of the attention for shaping conservative opinion and for its influence on the Trump administration, but we shouldn't overlook the power of conservative talk radio. The conservatism of talk radio only partly overlaps with institutional conservatism, that of the right wing, Washington think tanks, magazines, and the Republican Party itself. By the early 2000s, it had embraced a version of conservatism that is less focused on free markets and small government and more focused on ethno-nationalism and populism. What? Dude, fuck you. No. It is, in short, the core of Trumpism. Oh my fucking god. Alright. I actually enjoyed the idea off of this, but yes, they're going to try and make conservatism into racism. And the funniest part of this is, I mean, look back through conservatism throughout the years and what the left, especially, has tried to paint it as. They're coming back right now and saying, oh, well, back in the 80s, we thought that conservatism was small government and free markets, but, now we think it's racism. No, fuck you. You thought conservatives were racist ever since you tried to pull the party switch idea back in the fucking 60s. So no, don't give me that bullshit of this is a new thing, because A, it's not true, and B, you've been singing the same tune for 60 years. But I like the fact that they are noticing the fact that people are tuning into more talk radio, and yes, me sitting here talking into this microphone is the new version of talk radio. You guys sitting here and listening to us right now is the new version of talk radio. And I enjoy the fact that you've come with me on this journey to do so and help shape some of the ideas. I do hope to go a little bit more into the freedom market and the freedom aspect, and especially the small government aspect, than people like Limbaugh and Hannity and Tucker. I would much rather go into the freedom market than they will, because they're in favor of big government as long as Republicans are in control of the big government. Whereas I look at life and say, hey, we do need to take some time and make sure that we go into the small government, and it's much easier for you to protest at your mayor's office than it is for you to protest in Washington, D.C. But that's what we see off of that. All right, keeping going here from the Blaze, critical swing voters in battleground state reveal why Kamala Harris helps Trump re-election chances. This is from Chris Enlow. When Joe Biden announced Senator Kamala Harris as his vice presidential running mate, political experts predicted that Harris, being the first black female vice presidential nominee of a major political party, who is also not black, would boost Biden's standing with voters. But selecting Harris, a progressive Democrat, may have actually harmed Biden's standing among swing voters in battleground states, according to a new focus groups. Following last week's vice presidential debate between Harris and Vice President Mike Pence, Axios conducted a focus group with Michigan voters who supported Barack Obama in 2012 but Donald Trump in 2016. The majority of the swing voters said they would support Trump in this year's election because they believe Harris would eventually become president if Biden is elected. Biden's not going to make it 4 years, so Kamala Harris is going to be president, and I have zero trust that she can be president. So I'm just picking the lesser of two evils at this point, one voter identified as Shelley D. said. According to Axios, everyone else in the group agreed with Shelley D. Other swing voters told Axios that they felt scared over Harris's debate performance because she may help Biden win the election, the voters said. I'm fearful of this woman because she knows how to strike chords with the people of America, a voter identified as Matt T. said. She's basically utilizing everything that has happened this year to attack the Trump campaign, and she does it in such a way that she's making really strong points, but I don't think they're true. She's coming across very powerfully. And yep, she's going to come back off of this at the end and put the people that she doesn't like in prison, just like she did in California. According to Axios, just 2 voters in the group of 13 will be voting for Biden. The other 11 will be sticking to Trump. So we'll see where the polls go with this. I would be interested to see what the polls look like after the vice presidential debate. I haven't seen any new polls come out of this, but interesting to see because, I mean, these people in the focus group are right. You're looking back and you are looking at the future president. And I mentioned this during our debate coverage the other night too. That was one of the most important things to think about when I looked into this and looked at what was going on with it, is the fact that nobody remembers what happened during the Mike Pence-Tim Kaine debate because there was a reasonable expectation that neither man would become president ever. In this election, there is a reasonable expectation that either person on that stage, Kamala Harris or Mike Pence, could become the president in the next 4 years. Because both of our presidential candidates are ancient. 74 and 79. They are both old. They're both going. Either one of them is going to take a record at this point for the oldest president ever. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to look into off of this, and honestly, Kamala Harris' presidency does frighten me. The chief law executive officer in the land, being the person who kept people in prison for longer than they needed to be in prison for free and cheap labor. That scares me. All right, let's keep going here from the Daily Wire. Not a lot of fanfare, kind of boring. Local news covers anemic Biden-Harris event. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. But it's COVID. Nobody wants to come out in COVID land. A local news reporter in Swing State, Arizona. Swing State. Okay. Cast a Biden-Harris event and an upcoming bus tour kickoff as lacking fanfare and kind of boring, showcasing an empty street where the 2 leading Democrats were meeting inside with tribal leaders. Not a lot of fanfare out here, Fox 10 reporter Nicole Garcia said, standing in front of the Heard Museum in Phoenix. There's really not much to see. I'll step out of the way, but it's kind of boring out here. So it's not your typical presidential campaign event. We don't see people rallying outside. We don't see signs or really much of what's going on. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden and vice presidential pick Senator Kamala Harris journeyed to Phoenix and Tempe to speak with supporters, meet with tribal leaders, and kick off their Soul of the Nation bus tour on Thursday. As reported by Garcia, supporters of the Democratic duo were notably missing from inside and outside the Heard Museum, though there were numerous reporters and staffers inside. The Biden-Harris ticket, Garcia said, wanted to keep the gathering small as coronavirus-related precaution. Okay. Yeah. Still, Garcia highlighted the apparently anemic turnout was not what you would expect to see, since Arizona has cemented itself as a swing state, and this marked Biden and Harris's campaigning together for the first time since the DNC. I'm told by one of the Biden staffers, local staffers, is that they kind of kept the details about the visit as far as the timing and the exact locations. They didn't really want to give out that to the public because they wanted to keep the crowd to a minimum. They realize that we are in a pandemic and they don't want a crowd of more than 50 people at their events. Pretty much all the people that we saw enter the parking lot about 45 minutes ago were with the Biden and Harris campaign and the pool reporters, the reporter said. So you would expect to see, this is a pretty big event for the two of them to be campaigning together for the first time since the DNC. Here in Arizona, we've established our state as a battleground state, and so this technically is a big event, but not a lot of fanfare. And if the evil orange man was walking around in Tempe, he would have the crowd of masses behind him. Hundreds of thousands of people that wanted to get close. All right, let's keep going here. From KTIV, Siouxland's news channel. I think this is out of Iowa. Yes, Denison, Iowa. Farms display supporting Biden. Harris goes up in flames. From the Associated Press. A stack of hay bales in a western Massachusetts farm that were painted to show support for the Democratic presidential ticket went up in flames, and authorities say one man has been arrested in connection with the blaze. The unusual political display at the Holiday Brook Farm in Dalton featured 19 hay bales that were wrapped and painted with the words USA and Vote, along with the names of presidential nominee Joe Biden and vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris. Dickon Crane, owner of the farm, said he was working Friday evening, and when he turned around and the display was on fire, no one was hurt. And they don't give me a picture or video for that, but I saw the picture, I saw it over on Instagram, and the display was, it was a display. Obviously, there's more enthusiasm for Biden and Harris in Massachusetts than there is in the rest of the country, but it was a big display. And somebody went up and put it up in flames. And first off, dude, that's animal feed. So I actually do have to condemn the person who went and burned the damn thing up. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I don't know. I don't understand it. Yes, I can understand people that don't like the message, but this is the dude's livelihood on top of that. If you're against big government and big government subsidies, then don't burn up a person's livelihood. But it happened. There's nothing we can do about it now, and hopefully Dickon Crane does have enough in reserve that he can keep his animals fed over the winter without having to go and reach into his pocket and get more. Because 19 hay bales, that's a bunch of hay. So we'll see what happens. Well, we saw what happened off of this. This is probably not going to go very much further off of this story. Let's keep going here. Big surprise. Teen climate activist Greta Thunberg endorses Biden. Reading on from The Hill. From Jordan Williams. Teen climate activist Greta Thunberg has endorsed Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden. How dare you! I never engage in party politics, but the upcoming U.S. election is about and beyond all that, Thunberg tweeted. From a climate perspective, it's very far from enough. And many of you, of course, supported and other candidates. But damn, just get organized and everyone go and vote for Biden. Thunberg has become an outspoken figure, drawing much media attention since leading school strikes in her home of Sweden. In 2018, she's won Times Person of the Year award and was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 2019. So, yeah, big surprise. Thunberg has endorsed Biden. How dare you? How dare you? You've stolen my dreams and my childhood. How dare you? All right, I got just three more here, and then we'll do something that restores my faith in humanity and head on out of here. This comes to us. I got it from MSN, but it came from The Hill, I guess. Cruz, GOP could face bloodbath of Watergate proportions on Election Day. Senator Ted Cruz on Friday warned Republicans that the party could face a bloodbath in November if voters aren't feeling optimistic about the economy and the direction of the pandemic. Speaking on CNBC's Squawk Box, Cruz said the presidential election is extremely volatile and that President Trump could still get reelected by a big margin if voters feel like the U.S. is recovering from the pandemic-induced economic shutdown. But he warned that the party could also face landslide losses similar to what happened in the midterms following the Watergate scandal and Richard Nixon's resignation. I'm worried, and it's volatile and highly volatile. If people are going back to work and they're optimistic, they're positive about the future, we could see a fantastic election, the president getting reelected by a big margin, Republicans winning both houses of Congress, and I think that's a real possibility. But I also think that if on Election Day people are angry and they've given up hope and they're depressed, which is what Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer wanted them to be, then I think that could be a terrible election, and I think we could lose the White House and both houses of Congress, and that it could be a bloodbath of Watergate proportions. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has opened up a 9.7-point lead over Trump in the RCP average of polls, his largest lead in months. Biden has also opened up healthy leads in key battleground states, including Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I don't think he's leading here as much as the polls would like you to believe. That's not me being a pollster or asking people. That's just driving around and seeing the Trump signs versus the Biden signs. I don't think he has gotten near the lead that you guys think that he does. The president is polling weaker than expected in states that weren't expected to be in play, such as Ohio, Iowa, and Georgia. Republicans are growing worried that Trump could face a big loss on Election Day that costs the party their majority in the Senate. Senate Democrats are raising enormous sums of money and are running strong in states Trump won easily in 2016, including South Carolina, Iowa, and Alaska. So, I don't know where this goes here. It's hard for me. It's really hard for me to look at this and gauge anything because, for the most part, I do stick to rural areas of Wisconsin. I don't go to Milwaukee or Madison anymore, so I can't really gauge how they're doing. But I see the Trump bumper stickers everywhere, especially in Madison. You've got to be pretty brave to put a Trump bumper sticker on your car in Madison. And when I drive through there, I see all kinds of bumper stickers for Trump on the highway. And yes, I do see little Biden-Harris signs everywhere, but they're just the little signs. You don't see stuff for Biden and Harris like the big 20-bale display. You don't see stuff like that. You just see your little yard signs out here. Whereas I drive by, bigger than that, a great big Trump Pence 2020 sign every day on my way to work. Yes, it's out in the country. Yes, I understand that, but I see the big sign. I see the effigies. I see the massive, massive signs everywhere for Trump. But I don't see any of the enthusiasm for Biden, so I don't know where this goes. I am completely lost in trying to guess this election. I have no idea. I lean towards Trump. I'm not going to vote for the guy, but just looking around at everything that I see, I lean towards him, but I also do take some semblance. I take some information from the mainstream news and the Real Clear Politics averages, and I know they're cherry-picked too. But still, it's something you've got to look to and you've got to pay attention to. And if you really want the Orange Man to win, you really do need to get out there and vote. You can't take this as a point where you've got it in the bag. That's been the big thing. Always vote like you're an underdog. All right, let's keep going here. From The Blaze, Trump declares he's immune to COVID-19. Twitter flags and limits sharing of the president's tweet. From Paul Saka. Twitter has once again flagged the president's tweets. The tech giant's latest censoring of the president's account involves a post where Trump declared that he is immune to COVID-19. On Sunday, Trump tweeted, "A total, complete sign-off from the White House doctors yesterday. That means I can't get it. Immune. And I can't give it. It's very nice to know." Twitter flagged the president's tweet, claiming that it violated the company's rules about spreading misleading and potentially harmful information related to COVID-19. The post was not deleted after the social media platform deemed that while the communication broke Twitter's rules, the tweet may be in the public's interests to remain accessible. And I'm not seeing anything about the flagging. The president's tweet is accessible, however. Twitter limited how users could interact with the social media post. Attempts to reply to the president's immunity tweet will result in a pop-up window that says Twitter disabled most of the ways a user can engage with the post as a way to stop the tweet from reaching more people. That's voter suppression. Twitter also disabled users from retweeting Trump's tweet or giving it a like. The only engagement of the president's tweet that is permitted is to quote tweet the post. Really? So you've got an automatic ratio, is what you're telling me. So not only are you putting the feature in place so that people like Alyssa Milano can't get ratioed, but you've built ratioing into the president's tweets. That's interesting. All right. Well, that's what they're seeing of that. And I've got one more here, and then we'll do something that restores my faith in humanity and get the hell on out of here. Last one from the Daily Wire. New York Times reports conspiracy theory about Trump's White House lawn address. Quietly removes from article. From Ash Show. On October 8th, President Trump released a video of himself standing on the White House lawn addressing senior citizens vulnerable to the coronavirus. Just as they had done over the past week since Trump was diagnosed with COVID-19, media and Trump critics rushed to claim the video was actually filmed in front of a green screen because Trump is sicker than he appears. The New York Times even published an article promoting the conspiracy theory, which my former Washington Examiner colleague Beckett Adams called a deranged, easily debunked rumor. The Times article, written by Peter Baker and Maggie Haberman, with help from 4 additional reporters, initially claimed. In the video, Mr. Trump was shown on the south lawn of the White House hundreds of feet away from the mansion, but it appeared to be a digital backdrop as leaves blowing in the wind behind him couldn't be seen, repeating on a loop. Judd Deere, a White House spokesman, insisted that he was definitely outside. Mr. Trump has not appeared before the news cameras since his return from Walter Reed on Monday evening. 2 hours later, the paragraph disappeared, according to the website NewsDips, which tracks edits made to news articles. So, my God, yes, they tried to claim that he was faking it. He was out on a green screen and he was practically dying. These people are unhinged. They want the president dead so bad that they will come up and figure whatever it is that they can to try and make the American people think that he's on his last leg and he's dying. They are trying to write him out of the story. Because, let's face it, this has become a cross between a reality show and a sitcom. They're trying to write him out at this point. This is what the people are doing, and it is insanity beyond insanity. All right. And that's it for the news, though. So, yeah, watch that insanity here. All right, last thing that I do today is something that restores my faith in humanity. And this is something just more observational than actually having an article or something to come off with this, and something I've been noticing as we go along, and that is the fact that there has been a resurgence in the desire to go to church, and it restores my faith in humanity for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, that was one of the key things that came to the forefront when the COVID-19 pandemic started, was church involvement, because churches had to shut down, and there were various reasons that they gave for it. You project and you push out viruses when you try to sing. So you can't do that. We can't have people indoors together, gathered together, because we can't gather, because that spreads the virus everywhere. There were a million excuses for it. And this restores my humanity on 2 fronts. First off, seeing people go and get back into religion the way that they have shows me that there is a resurgence for stopping the worship of objectivity and especially worship of the government, which, believe it or not, we have seen a lot of worship of the government from both sides in these past 4 years. Socialists want to worship the state, and the heads of the state, like Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders, they will worship at that altar. And there's a lot of religious fervor for worshiping Trump. You can try and say that there isn't as much as you want, but there is a lot of religious fervor to worship Trump. But seeing that go away, and seeing people wanting to go back to church, to hear the word, to come out and join and gather, in a way that they've been doing or some of them have stopped doing, but now just want to go back and do. That restores my faith in humanity, because the faith is coming back. And now I'm not a practicing Christian because I don't believe in the structure of a lot of the churches that I've been to. I think that a lot of the message has been tainted by man. But I definitely believe in the resurrection and the forgiveness of sins. I definitely believe in that. And yes, to do so, I would definitely go back to a church as well, just to bask in this and learn from somebody who studied this rather than doing my own studies. But the other thing that restores my faith in humanity about this is the fact that a lot of people now have come out and realized that no, we didn't come forward onto this nation in 1776 to be told what to do by a government. In fact, we turned around and gave at the time, the biggest government in the world the finger and said, fuck you. We're not going to do what you tell us. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Is what they said. 2 centuries before Jacques de la Rocca put that same message out there. And the fact that as much as the government tries to shut the church down over the pandemic, so that people will have no choice but to come in and worship the government, the people will give the finger back to the government and they'll want to go to church. And I love that. That restores my faith in humanity. As much as the fact that people are becoming a more religious people as they go along. So, twofold of my faith in humanity being restored. And that's going to be it. So we will be back here later on tonight for the Red and Ed show. I don't know, we might move it a little bit earlier because of some changes in the campaign. So I will be reaching out to my co-host and figuring out where she stands on this, because they changed her meetings now to 7 o'clock, which is when her and I are on the air at the time. So watch Twitter or the Discord for updates, and we will see what's going on with that. Or we will be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.